Rarely am I embarrassed about my hobbies. I love anime and related media, and I don't really care who knows. Hell, I even put down that I was the president of my university's anime club when I was sending out resumes during my job hunt. That being said, even I feel a bit awkward when someone asks, "Hey, what are you reading?" And my response is, I shaved, then I brought a high school girl home. It requires just a bit of explanation to clarify that, honest, it's not as creepy as it sounds, I swear. Even my wife raised an eyebrow when she saw the title, and she's a full-blown otaku. So, in the interest of explaining why it's not as bad as it sounds, ladies and gentlemen, may I present my review of I Shaved, Then I Brought a High School Girl Home. I Shaved, Then I Brought a High School Girl Home, or as I'll be calling it for the rest of the review, Higehiro, follows our protagonist, Yoshida, a 26-year-old programmer. As the story starts, he gets rejected by his longtime crush, gets drunk, takes in a runaway high school girl he finds as he's staggering home, and then proceeds to do absolutely nothing inappropriate to her. Rather, he just asks her not to steal anything and passes out. The story then proceeds to follow Yoshida and the high school girl Sayu as they adapt their cohabitation with each other, while going about their lives. Sayu takes over the household chores, gets a part-time job, makes new friends, and starts to come to trust Yoshida. Meanwhile, Yoshida gets used to having a dependent, deals with the romantic interests of two co-workers, and also has loads of fun explaining about his new living situation when they find out. Now, at this point, I should be clear that although there are some elements of romantic comedy in the story, it can be pretty serious. To anyone who is sensitive to topics relating to sexual violence, consider this your trigger warning. Okay, so unfortunately, Yoshida wasn't the first man to take Sayu in after she ran away from home. Rather, she had bounced from house to house of a number of men who took sex as a payment for letting her stay. Combined with the trauma that forced her to run away from home in the first place, it's fair to say that Sayu has a fair amount of baggage she's working through, and that's another main element of the story. I would say that the majority of light novels are aimed at a teenaged audience, and as such, I really appreciate it when I come across a more mature one. Higehiro fits that bill. Rather than yet another high school story, this story gives an interesting look into workplace culture in Japan. It acknowledges the sexism that is prevalent in the environment, the hierarchical nature of the workplace, and the culture of overtime and overwork. It is telling that one of Yoshida's co-workers straight up admits that she pretends to be incompetent because many of the men at her firm feel more comfortable that way. Likewise, it is equally telling when all of Yoshida's co-workers think that something must be up when, horror above horrors, he actually starts going home on time. I wouldn't necessarily say it's a critique of Japanese white-collar work, but more an honest representation of the way things are. And I found some elements were relatable to my own experience in the workforce. Likewise, I found the character interactions to be very realistic. You do get the humor from occasional awkward situations Yoshida finds himself in, and the powerful emotional moments from his interactions with Sayu, but none of them feel overblown or dramatized. Rather, all the characters act in ways you would expect real humans to. While this can make the story as a whole feel a bit more subdued, the moments of humor and emotion then stand out more and become more powerful. The other aspect of Higehiro that I'm a huge fan of is that of found family. The idea of forming a set of meaningful bonds of caring, kindness, and interdependence with a group of people regardless of blood relations. The last time I saw this done well was in March Comes In Like a Lion, and it looks like Higehiro may give me my next fix. Watching Sayu develop a new group of people she can rely on while coming to terms with her past is truly heartwarming, as is watching her become important to those people. Easily one of my favorite parts of the story so far has been watching Sayu and her co-worker Asami become close friends, confide in each other, and cry together. You know how to blow away all my goodwill about a story being heartwarming? Make it a mother-bleeding harem. So yeah, Yoshida's boss at work, his junior at work, and possibly Sayu all have a romantic interest in him. Which doesn't really go well with the other half of the story. I'd be totally fine if this was a straight up romantic comedy, just with older characters and set in the office instead of a high school. That would be a nice twist on the genre conventions. Likewise, I am also totally happy for this to just be a platonic, heartwarming story about an office worker providing an environment for a high schooler to get over past trauma. That works fine too. The combination of these two, though, is less than ideal. The former makes me want to view the story as lighthearted entertainment, while the latter makes me want to take the story seriously. They're completely at odds with each other tonally. More problematic than that, though, is the implication of a possible romantic relationship between Sayu and Yoshida. As of where the light novel is translated to at the time of this recording, Sayu and Yoshida's relationship remains platonic. But, should that change, it gets into some dangerous territory very quickly. Aside from the not insignificant age gap between the two, I think it sends a pretty poor message if the way a girl who has suffered trauma from relations with older men gets over her trauma is to enter another relationship with an older man. Also, given the power imbalance between the two, as Sayu is relying on Yoshida for a place to live, I don't see any way these two could have a healthy romantic relationship. I pray to God that this series doesn't go the Yoshida x Sayu route, or at very least if it does, the author somehow finds a tasteful way to do it. To the point that is currently translated for Higehiro, I have highly enjoyed it. It has been touching, heartwarming, and while the harem elements are unhelpful, they haven't actively detracted from the story too much. Barring the event of the story completely falling apart as it goes forward, I am happy to recommend it to those of you who are looking for a good seinen slice of life story. If you've already read this story and are looking for something similar, I would recommend either March Comes In Like a Lion for the similar theme of found family and overcoming trauma. Alternately, for a discussion of some of the more explicit parts of the story, you could also read J.K. Haru as a sex worker in another world. Although to be clear, that story is not for the faint of heart. Anyways, I hope you all enjoyed this review. Thanks for listening. Cheers!